Okay, let's jump back into this. Here we go. And now I think we're past the intro, and are we in the next chart? Here we go.
Well, the horns come in with a big blast, and then it dissipates, and then it's the body of the tune. I'll tell you what. I think where Sandy's bread and butter is for sure is the transitional material, because let's face it, for percussion, um, that's the best places for us. That's where we can be as creative as possible. Is the transitional material connecting one thing to another thing, where it's not really mandated. There's not like an arrangement of a tune or something, and then it's like we like that whole keyboard thing was just functionally just to get us from how the hit settled, and then we're off to the next thing, and that keyboard thing took us down and got us to the next chart. And so I just think that from someone who knows what it is under the hood, I think that is some of the most interesting stuff that's happening is the transitional material.
You have that creative space to use to get to, like you said, to get from one vehicle to the next.
Plus, it's like a puzzle, like it's you got this place and this place. I got to get there. Like what, and it has to make sense harmonically and musically. And it's a challenge. And I think both Sandy and I love that challenge.
Oh, yeah.
I think it makes it really interesting. So
now this tenor feature that we just heard, did that just start off always as like add-ons, or is that something so from the beginning it was add-on?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it wasn't a case where the drill was written and then we had to do that. I think it was conscious, like right away, and Michael knew that we were doing that, and that was the plan.
Okay, cool. Here we go. Let's get back. It's a cool transition. So is this all original stuff right here?
Yeah, obviously it's based on the harmonic language that is in either side of it.
Yeah. Love that Spock work.
And it's got several different tempos. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I didn't. Hold on. There's a whole bunch of different tempo changes?
Yeah, you'll notice that like halfway through that phrase when the snares, we sort of set up the very first statement. It's sort of a 12/8, 6/8 sort of thing, right? And then change to the quarter note. So they start marching the 3. It ends up being like wicked fast. In terms of just the way their feet are moving.
The way that they're moving.
Yeah.
What's kind of interesting too is like nowadays, like buzzes, but like buzz roll stuff is like pretty popular as compared to like the traditional stuff from just the evolution of music musically.
I personally think that it's like a sound that adds a lot of variety to it. I think like what you're referring to back in the old days, it was like considered sort of easier, right? And like it wasn't an open roll, so it was a little bit easier and demanding. So I think that I experiment with a ton of different basses that can kind of communicate something. Like the hand speed of the buzz roll is often changing. You know what I mean? I'll use like a 4 against 3 into an 8th note triplet into an 8th note into it. You know what I mean? And I'll actually change the basses so that it actually can say something.
So it breathes.
Yeah, or it actually has like a direction to it.
Some type of like life. Yeah. Here we go.
Now the peak change right here.
Yeah.
One of the coolest moments is the return back to the slower tempo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now we're off to the races.
Yeah.
This is the drum feature.
So when you wrote that feature, what were you thinking about during all that?
Well, like a percussion feature oftentimes is an opportunity to infuse like a different I don't want to sound too vague, but like a different energy level, like by bumping the tempo that fast. I want to say that was like well into the 200s. I think it just gives the tune like a real spark. I mean, it kicks the tune in the middle of the tune, so it constantly re-energizes the music, and I think that once again in the effort of variety. I suppose I could have stayed in the slow 6/8 thing, but I thought by just the interest of variety, just to give it a little kick and to change the way it feels, not only gives them an opportunity to play different things, but it just juices up the whole tune, and then basically each bar goes by a little faster, and you can get more things. You can say more things in a shorter period of time, I think.
Yeah.
So
okay, oh, that's cool. Let me back a little bit.
So that the tune's coming to an end now, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, did that ending change at all from the beginning? I don't think it did it?
Nope.
It always just stayed consistent.
It's it's a little bit of a blur, honestly, to be able to specifically say if anything changed. But I'm thinking basically no. Like once we get the first camp recording, the learn the tune at the camp, then we hear it, make some recordings. A lot of times, let's face it, I teach an arranging course here at the university, and it's funny that I just sort of boil some things down to like very simple concepts, which is there's usually three ways that the tune's going to come out. It's going to come out you thinking it's going to sound great, and then it comes out and it doesn't sound as good as you think it should sound, or some moments, right, didn't come out the way you thought they were going to come out. And then those other times where you blow off a complete transition, you just sort of right through it really quickly, don't think twice about it, and then all of a sudden at the camp you realize that's like one of the coolest things.
One of the best things, yeah. I totally understand that, yeah.
Yeah, and then finally the point comes with enough experience where it actually does come out the way you think it should come out, and you really can hear it before it happens, so it's not a surprise. And so I think, obviously with enough experience, there's fewer and fewer changes every year, I think.
Oh, that's cool. All right, let's get into this next chart. Nice one. Nice egg beaters. Hey, real quick, those tenor mallets with the rubber tips on the back, is that something
Yeah.
you designed, or is that something that Innovative already had?
No, I designed that for
Yeah.
sure. It's there's I feel like I talk too much in this podcast. I just I feel like
No, go
everything
ahead.
has
I
a
mean, we're
story
here for
behind
it,
it.
man.
Like
We
I got tired. I'm from the day, and as you are, I'm from the day when we played with aluminum mallets with rubber handles, right?
the cookie mallets, yeah,
Yeah, and that was a very convenient thing to flip the sticks and play with the handles.
yeah,
And I remember distinctly, like the first time when we switched to playing with sticks, like writing that in, like flip and play, and there being no difference in the sound. It was like hilarious. It sounded just like sticks. And so I just thought, um, first of all, I missed that. I missed that the ability to change gears, and make it sound different just by flipping the sticks. And the other thing was, as all percussionists can attest, playing with any kind of a swizzle stick feels terrible. You know, for the most part, it feels awful. And so it took a lot of prototypes to come up with a stick that has a rubber handle, so you can flip them and you can immediately change the sound like in a second. And you didn't have to facilitate like a mallet change or any of that stuff. You could just sort of flip the mallets. And then you would, believe it or not, when you play with those sticks on using the butt end, it actually feels kind of normal. It feels like a drumstick. And so you can actually play things like real things like diddles and other things you can play. So it took about I might be exaggerating, but it took about 11 prototypes. And when you're designing sticks, it's pretty amazing how 1 millimeter can make the world of difference. Like the smallest increment of measurement differences can feel so different in your hand and sound different. And so
really.
it took, yeah, IP was just fantastic about just like constantly going back and forth until it was tweaked exactly the way it is. And I love playing with those things. They feel great.
Isn't it amazing what a difference sound wise just that little bit of rubber on the back of those mallets make, and it gives
Yeah,
it like a total different feel or listening feel on the
yeah.
drum, at least on from the fan point of view.
Yeah, and then and it's so much simpler to blend with other instruments. And I think that's ultimately, one during the intro, I noticed there's like a big snare feature. You sort of commented it when the snare feature hit, but you'll do notice that when the snare feature hit, the front ensemble's still playing, and they're still like, I just figured out, you know, a way to focus on making sure that multiple things can happen and nothing gets stepped on. You can clearly hear the snares, and if I just mention it, you can listen to that, and you can clearly hear the vibraphones, clearly hear the upper end of the marimbas, and nothing gets in the way, but it allows more people to participate. So there's typically there's typically two things in music, and I said this at a clinic not that long ago at PASIC, where we had to write the three percussion guys had to write the same chart in a different way. And I remember explaining this thought process, in that the fact that there typically is one thing that is happening in a primary way musically. There's always one primary voice. There's a melody. There can be like a fugue, I guess, which is an exception where there's more than one thing. But typically speaking, there's one focal thing. The problem with drum corps is that there can be like up to like 7 layers of support. So there's primary music and there's supportive material. And so the problem is, how do you play and blend and not push the primary thing out of the way? And I think that's if you hear some high schools that are younger, that oftentimes that'll be the fundamental problem, is that there's so many layers of support that ended up being out of balance or a little too articulate, that it just simply covers up the real thing that you want to see. And so I think a lot of what I do, especially live and rehearsal, and a lot of what Sandy and I do compositionally, is making sure that we write in a way that inherently makes it absolutely clear what you're trying to listen to, while still having people play. And right. so that moment where we build up, everybody cuts out and it's a feature, that will ultimately be a little more meaningful if it happens just a couple of times in the show. See what I mean? But if that happens too often, then you get used to it, and it becomes not that special anymore, and it becomes like a normal thing.
It minimizes the moment.
Right. So if you just pick and choose, like when that happens, then it becomes even more exciting, I think. When that moment comes out where we build, and then everybody cuts out and it's just one featured moment, then I think it becomes like super exciting. But generally speaking, that has to be like a specific moment. There has to be a reason for that. It can't just be that's the way, like letter A in a chart can't be a snare feature, letter B can't be a quad feature, or letter C is a bass feature. You see what I mean? Like, I think it's a lot more sophisticated than that, and I think that's a lot of the fun in writing, is weaving those lines in and out and supporting some primary voice in a way where your multiple layers of support still create a texture underneath something that is the focus.
Like that snare feature. Here, let's go back. Let's hear those egg beaters again. Let me see if I went back far enough.
This is like in the intro.
Yeah, there it is, right there, right?
If you go back to the intro,
now all I hear is Hendrix.
Right. I know, this is cool. Yeah. And once you, so this is full group, punctuations, keyboards connecting all the dots, little windows, a little bigger window here, sending keyboard run. And now right here, snare voice, but listen to the keyboards. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that cool underlying stuff.
So when the snares or any, if the snares or any section of the battery then finish their feature and cut out, there's still something that's dovetail and already going on.
Yeah.
See what I mean? So it's not like it's not like Legos where there's a block of things happening. It's all like overlapping and
layered.
Yeah. It's in music we basically call it voice leading. We lead the voices to moments. You know what I mean? So that basically it's not a stop and start mindset. It's a continually threaded thing. So
that's cool to know. Man, I need to go take that arranging class. Is it like now listen, I think of things in like drum corps stuff. So is it like, it's not like marching percussion arranging. It's probably overall arranging, correct?
Right. Yeah. As a matter of fact, marching percussion is out of all the projects in the class, the very last project is a choice between a contemporary pop ensemble with a rhythm section or a marching percussion arrangement, and it's their student's choice at that point. Because I'm very conscious of the fact that I don't push the drum corps thing hard at the university, because that's not what it is.
No, that's not the purpose. Yeah.
And so I'm just really really aware of my surroundings, of what the moment is, and then if somebody wants to learn about that, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna.
It's funny because like in our realm we think of you as Paul Rennick, the drum, the drum person. It's like Indiana Jones, he's Professor Jones at the college, and then he's Indy with the hat, out in the wild. Yeah. All right, here we go.
Well, I that's a whole other topic, which is the the players experience this and are taught in the context that, with the hopes that what they learn in this experience and all that they go through, they can take that knowledge and come back to the university and apply it to what's happening. So I'm very aware of the fact that I don't want to teach in a way that you can't apply it. You know what I mean? Like, I know for a fact that these guys and ladies will have to come back to school and take a drum set lesson. with Ed Sove or Quincy Davis. You know what I mean? They'll have to do that for real. I don't want them to all of a sudden be a total fish out of water and not understand
where it's all just drum corps, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's not healthy, you know, especially if you're a student, you know. You got to be well-rounded in everything.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back. Let's see where we are. Did I go too far? No. Oh, yeah, there's the egg beaters again. Man, those are so sweet. I don't know what it is. I love good egg beaters. Yeah, because here we are with the back parts of the mallets.
Yeah, and all the battery stuff sort of
Yeah.
voice led its way out of it instead of into it. You see?
Yeah. Now this whole quad feature right there, did you write that, or
Yeah,
it was all pre-planned?
totally. Yeah.
Here, let's go back.
I don't think we changed the note of that, honestly. And you know what? I full disclosure, I remember attempting something like that. Whatever what was the Four Seasons show, the spring show? I think it was
2015? 15, 16?
It must have been 16.
I think it's 16, yeah.
And I tried something like that, and you know what? I forced it, and I didn't think it fit, and I eventually just took it out.
Oh.
And so then I thought, okay, now I wanted to do something like that, and I figured, okay, if I'm going to do something like I need to not try to add it in after the fact. I need to make it part of what it is, you know. And that was all written, you know, like 30-second note triplets around the drums with different partials of a quarter note triplet being the subdivision of what's happening. So.
All right, let's get back into this. It's kind of like a 94 VK-esque. Split quad part. This is like my favorite chart of the show.
Love it.
Did you realize it was going to groove this hard when you were writing it?
I remember turning around to, I think it was Wayne Harris or somebody and saying, as we heard this in the show, I remember turning around and saying, yeah, I used to be cool. See, I can be cool, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was kind of a funny moment. But yeah, I'm a big, you know, obviously we talked about like growing up playing drum set and just valuing that. And you know what I totally embraced about this whole section was the fact of the tempo. Yeah. You know? Like
it's not
you
all
have
fast.
to,
it's like
right,
back.
yeah. And it's exciting to be fast, and certainly the visual people can move a lot when it's fast. But there's something about I just sort of like totally accepted the fact that I think it was like 112 beats per minute or something, and I thought, you know what, that's like let's not apologize for the tempo and let's really play at 112 and just make sure it sounds like in a pocket.
I just love the groove of this. In fact, I don't know if you ever saw it. One time I took like some video clips of like old movies and stuff.
I laughed so hard when I saw it. Sandy is like totally, she's you know, so it's like the smartest person I know, and she is very I don't want to say active online. I'd say she's online. She gets it. She understands what's happening.
So Sandy saw it?
Sandy saw that and she goes, you got to see this. And I just roared like out loud, rerun and the whole thing.
Yeah, rerun. And, you know, it's like the whispers, you know, it all fit, man, because it just moves so hard. And then the Soul Train dance line.
Right.
Here we go. Let's get back into this.
I got to ask you, how long did it take to do that?
In my, you know, the longest part was just figuring out what I wanted the clips I wanted to use in my head, but putting it all together, 15 minutes. You know,
no way.
Yeah,
because it was like it was coordinated. Like there'd be certain hits.
The hits would just like funny. Hit. Yeah. I think I even put Urkel from Family Matters in there.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
All right.
I was laughing very hard.
Yeah, nice hurt this.
And then pick the tempo up a little bit. One of the hard things about playing like pop music or funky music is that a lot of times it doesn't have a lot of times there's like a pedal, you know what I mean? Like a pitch that is a drone that sort of stays uh, in either exactly the same or very similar pitch. And I remember really trying to figure out like, I think Sandy initially put it out there where it was just like kind of a single pitch because honestly there's not much else you can do. It's really what it's. And I remember we just sort of displaced the octave and put the octave above and the octave below in funky places so that it would act a little bit like the drum set concept where it was like you'd hear like the E of a note or the and of a note kicking out.
Yeah.
But the harmony didn't really change. And that's what keeps it interesting, I think.
I like those accented hurtas. It's like coming at you aggressive.
You talked earlier about the drum finish.
Yeah.
I have a really good friend of mine. His name is Dave Croy. He's a graphics. Yeah. I mean, I've known him for, God, 30 years or whatever.
Yeah, but he's Skyrider's bass drum guy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. And he is a really successful graphics designer. And we really, I'm able to sort of just like think of the concept and say, okay, we need this. We need the drums to look like this. And I'll sort of either just describe it or I'll come up with some graphic of, like something that's like hinting vaguely at what we want it to look like.
Yeah, this one was a fist, right?
Yeah. And then I just take that concept to Dave, and then Dave will throw back like he'll realize the idea. In other words, he'll bring it to life, and he'll say, "Okay, how about this?" And I think he's such a pro that I think we nail it every year. And Dynasty has the ability. All these drums are hand painted.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
it's
totally.
They're not like drum
none of it
slips
is
or anything.
reps.
Yeah,
we've never used the slip, and they're all lacquered and hand painted. And I think up close, it's like incomparable in terms of like seeing a drum with a slip on it and seeing a live and like a real painted, lacquered, stained drum. I think it's just a different quality.
What happened to these drums at the end of the season?
I think they kind of resell them. I think they sort of strip the decals off of them. So that fist is actually a graphic that's attached to the drum after it's painted.
Okay.
So before all the hardware goes on, all of the, like the graphic goes on there, and then the hardware is put on top of it. So it looks part of the drum really seamlessly. So the actual paint and the color of the drum is all lacquered, and it's, we go through, once again, it's sort of like the prototype of the sticks where it's like lots of back and forth and lots of detail until we get it exactly the way that I want it. And then I'm telling you, the subtlety of the fade, how you can get a drum sometimes to fade from one color to a different color. Oftentimes that I'm using fades in the same color family so that it makes it look it's hard for me to describe it. In other words, you're going from a darker shade in that family to a lighter shade in that family.
Yeah,
and then it just looks like a natural shadow or a natural lighting of the drum.
But it's all hand painted.
All of it, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Dynasty.
Yeah. All right, here we go. I like those the drum slaps on the side of the snares.
Yeah.
Different sounds.
I just superimposed like a different meter. You know what I mean? Like I superimposed a different meter over top of a 4/4.
Oh, to have like some modulation going on.
Yeah, it just anytime you have a different levels of detail, I think it's just a little more interesting, and especially in drum corps where there's multiple viewings. I mean, you're going to see the show. I mean, lots of times. I mean, people are going to see recordings of you or live performances many, many times. So there has to be some depth. The pool needs to be a little deeper so that it maintains the interest. And so the more often you hear it, the more things you notice that you didn't notice the first time. And I think that is another thing that I value heavily.
I didn't mean modulation. I meant like polyrhythms. You get some polyrhythm stuff
Yeah,
going on. Yeah. Here we go. Was that hard to line up with the core when you guys first started playing?
I can't remember exactly, but I remember, like if there's anything, it's typically like a spatial thing. Like they're out in the middle of nowhere on the field out there, and then we're trying to come in. And I have that pretty dialed in. You know, I understand sound and how it works, and I can be considerate of that, not only in the rehearsal, but actually the construction of the music. You know, I get what's going to happen. You know, another subtle thing about the drum finish, if you look right at that picture right there, is the bass rims are different colors.
Oh, I never noticed it.
So the fade comes from the side.
Yeah, all the way across.
Right. Yeah. Instead of being a burst from the middle out,
it's from the side. Yeah.
Yeah, the left rim is the darkest shade and the right rim is the lightest shade.
Huh, so. Interesting. I never noticed that.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
And this is like the big ending, right?
Yeah.
Put in the old school lean back.
Yeah. That's the tradition stuff. That's like the surfer viz. It's got to be in there somewhere.
And this is all transition.
Yeah. Didn't you call this the outro?
Yeah. Modulated to a different tempo. Once again, this was sort of like the intro where it was all constructed in one thought. You know, I think I wrote the whole thing, right? And then once again said, you know, gave some things in this one I think stayed. But then once again, when Sandy gets it, she gets what I mean. You know what I mean? She understands what I'm after. And then she just takes that and works within that context to max out every possible line. And once again, it's not just one thing I have to point out is it's not just one marimba part and one vibe part. There's like, you know, many parts going on. Sometimes each player has their own part, and sometimes there's 3 layers of scalar material overlapping, and the vibraphones have several parts too. So it all works together, but it's not unison.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this before. Like, watching your books, it's like there's a show within a show. You know, the even within the battery, it's its own. From voice to voice, it's its own show. You know, I think the term I used. I think the term I used was Inception.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. Good movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, and the whole thing is like, let's face it, Rob. We do this long enough. You got to make it interesting for everyone. You have to make it interesting for you as well as the players. And I think it's as a teacher, I find it really fascinating to show them that, you know what I mean, to basically explain what's happening in the music. And I think all of them are like super smart college age music majors mostly, and they're interested in that and they're fascinated. And I think they really appreciate stepping through the music to explain what happens at one point, and then they find out they all have the same understanding of the music. And if you have the same understanding of it, you're likely to interpret it in the same way.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Let's get back into this. I think this is the outro. Oh no, here comes the outro right here.
So this is the same material, right? And I used we used the same material, climax, and changed tempo right here. So I took the old tempo and went to the new tempo. And then this is more or less a keyboard feature.
Ooh, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
You know, that's interesting.
This is the ballad right here.
Yeah, you go from that reefed keyboard feature to that nice, like, slow snare.
Right. So the story behind the triple laterals, it was another thing. That little keyboard feature, I wanted to make sure. I think Sandy and I are both very conscious of the fact that we want people to notice what we're doing, and I think sometimes it's frustrating when, like, an entire summer will go by and there'll be like no comments about something that's really difficult. Like, there's so many parts that there'll be like these different degrees of like 5-lits and 7-lits going on, and you hardly notice them. It's a little bit frustrating. I want it to be seamless, and I want it to occur in the context of something that just makes sense to everyone, and not just the snare drummer in the audience gets it. I want everyone to get it. So I think I try to fit all of those odd rhythms.
So it's not like the comments say that you don't write any notes.
Oh yeah, like even in that last couple passages, like 16th, the triplet rolls. I remember last summer we played like a full out 7-lit and the quad lines, and honest to God, Rob, not a single comment from anybody. And even not even I'm not talking about the judges really. I mean anybody.
Anybody,
they simply don't know it. So a lot of the players understand how much. I mean, there's basically something of everything in the show. There's every rudiment you could imagine, every different modulated polyrhythm, and there's all sorts of things happening on. I try to like hide it in the context of musical connection and flow, so that we don't like grind to a halt just to play the 5-lit, so that everyone can know. And although I must admit it's a lot easier to tell that you're doing it that way, I find it more rewarding to kind of fit it in there, and then after the fact, talking to you, sort of stop in the tape and say, "Hey, check this out."
Yeah.
Check out that the 7-lit roll that led to that release.
Yeah, I think you're doing it too well that nobody notices. You got to dirt it up. Maybe you got to dirt it up a little bit so then they'll know.
Isn't that the way it is? Isn't it a crazy concept that dirty equates to hard and clean equates to easy? But we're playing everything under the sun, and constantly too. I just like the amount of playing time. I think is another thing that we're very conscious of.
Yeah, I think that gets lost. That gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, I do. I agree, and so we're not doing it for any other reason than that's what we just like, And I think Sandy and I feel both the same way. It's almost like it's kind of a weird thing, drum corps, huh? It's like musical and educational, and so we're just making sure that by the end of the summer, they can't just do their 10 to 12 minute show. You know what I mean? They can do a lot more.
Yeah, and they're better musicians by the end of it all. So
yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's get back into this.
So back to the triple ladders, I wanted to spell that out so hard that I if you notice, if you go to that part, I put it in 3 against 4 16th notes. So they go digga 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 digga, and then they played 6 couplets with the same rhythm. So in other words, we did like an old school slow fast.
Yeah.
We played it slow, and then said, "Here's what we're playing," and then here's it really fast.
Yeah. You could definitely hear it. You could definitely tell where it is.
Yeah.
And then the decel into the ballad.